It is a priority for Alabama politicians to protect the boss at every opportunity, and that includes the Warrior Met private equity fund managers in New York.
Which side are you on? Which side are you on?
I think that the priorities of a political figure, of a pundit, of a politician, they tell us a lot about their politics. What effect are they going to have on the world? That's going to be determined by their priorities, much less than by their answers to a survey, right? Actions speak louder than words. And for pundits, your words are your actions, right? You know, so if this was my job, if the majority of the time that I spent trying to have an impact on the world, which thankfully it's not this, but if that was the case, if the majority of the time that I spent trying to have an impact on the world was me, like, you know, talking out my ass on a microphone, then my words would be my actions, right? Because theoretically, doing this kind of thing, what we're doing right now, is supposed to educate people and get them to think about the world in a different way and get them to change the world. You know, that's theoretically what we're supposed to be. You know, obviously it's for entertainment, and it's for you to have something on in the background while you wash your dishes. Like, these are all very important things, but at the highest level, you know, I think that people who get into political talking, we want to change the world, right? We want to change the world. So, for example, you could say that you're pro-choice, as some conservative talk radio hosts in North Alabama do. Actually, there are legitimately conservative talk radio hosts in North Alabama that say they are pro-choice. You could say that Warrior Met is giving Alabama coal miners a raw deal. Again, as some conservative talk radio hosts in North Alabama do, or at least have at one time on one show once. But if you never make a positive argument for women's bodily autonomy, and instead spend all of your time talking about how the radical left is trying to push abortion too much, or you spend all of your time pushing politicians that are actively trying to reject the idea of women's bodily autonomy, I do not view you as pro-choice. Like, that's just, and I have friends that are pro-life. I'm not saying that it makes, like, that you should go to hell for being pro-life or anti-choice. I'm not saying that necessarily. I'm just saying you're not really pro-choice if the effect that you have on the world is not pro-choice. You could even theoretically actually be a conservative pro-choice person, but you should be making these arguments from a conservative point of view, but these people don't do that. They say it in passing, and then they go on to attack abortion. You could, but on the same token, if you never make a positive argument in support of the coal miners, if you never actually challenge people with power on issues of material relevance in the lives of working people. I mean, these people, they spend hours every day talking to the most powerful people in Alabama. I mean, my God, like, that's, you know, I mean, look, kudos to them. These people have created a sort of power for themselves. And, you know, if you never ask these people about issues of material relevance to the lives of working people, if you have not, over the course of the last year, right, we are coming up on, these coal miners have been on strike for a whole year, come April the 1st, in like a few days after you hear this. There are people on the radio that talk to gubernatorial candidates, that have talked to the sitting governor, that have talked to people in law enforcement, all of these people that have power to do something about this strike, and they have never asked them about it. They've never asked them about it. So does it actually matter when you say, when pushed against the wall in a conversation, that you support the coal miners, quote unquote, whatever the hell that means? I would argue that it doesn't, in the same way that if you spend all of your time attacking abortion, you're not pro-choice, okay? So especially, like in the other argument, when the entirety of your body of work supports people that not only have opposing views to you on these issues, but their opposition to those issues are priorities for them. It is a priority for Alabama politicians to protect the boss at every opportunity, and that includes the Warrior Met private equity fund managers in New York and Australia. It's a priority for them because they're not doing anything about it. That's why every now and then when I see a conservative propagandist say something stupid, I will juxtapose it with real issues, and particularly over the past year, one of those real issues has been the coal miner strike. I don't do it all the time, but it's not something that I do irregularly, right? Okay, I'm not afraid to admit that. I often do this. I often say, when somebody says something about how it is a serious issue for the West, it's a serious issue for the West that Minnie Mouse for 1 month in one location halfway across the world is wearing a pantsuit.
Oh, no.
When, look, I mean, if somebody says something so as ridiculous as that, I will occasionally juxtapose that with the fact that they have never said anything about the coal miner strike. I will do that because I think it's relevant. And I did that last week with WVNN radio host and policy director of the Koch brother-funded Alabama Policy Institute, Phil Williams, because he decided to derail a conversation about Medicaid expansion because the reporter used some words that hurt his feelings. Okay? So what was the policy? What was the policy that was being discussed? It was extending postpartum Medicaid coverage to a full year. I think that's very important. Maternal mortality in Alabama is among the highest in the country. And so I think it's important to expand postpartum Medicaid coverage. It's important because also, as Reckon reports, 1/3 of pregnancy-related deaths happen between 1 week and 1 year postpartum, where Alabama only covered 2 months before. Now we're looking at covering a year. I don't think it's a done deal, but it's moving in that direction. This is going to make a huge difference in Alabama, where an astonishing, I could not believe this when I read it, an astonishing 50%, 1 out of every 2 babies that are born in Alabama, their mothers are covered by Medicaid. That's a lot of people. That's a lot of people. And that could not have happened without the tireless efforts of folks like Jane Addams and others at Alabama Arise and their allies pushing for the expansion of Medicaid and having this on the table as an option when the funds became available. So, what exactly did Phil Williams get his panties in a wad about? That kicked off, him getting his panties in a wad about this, kicked off a good week. A week! In a world where we're at war. The world is at war right now. And for a good week in the Alabama conservative media, they spent squealing about this. Hours of time on talk radio across the state. Opinion columns. What was it about the revelation that there are going to be fewer postpartum deaths in Alabama that made him so mad? Was it that it's taken so long to get this done? Was he mad, perhaps, that people on his team, quote unquote, spent so long fighting Medicaid expansion and as a result, people died needlessly? Is that what he got mad about? Hell, was he even mad about the policy because maybe there's something that I'm missing? Maybe there's something that I'm missing and it's not actually going to save lives. Maybe there are things that we could be doing instead of this. I would even give him that. That there's an argument, let's just say hypothetically. It would be wrong, but is that what he got mad about? No. He was upset, and all the other losers in the conservative media in Alabama were upset because the reporter used the phrase birthing people. to describe people who would benefit. He hijacked reporting on something that will actually benefit 1 out of every 2 people who give birth in Alabama to cry about the words that were being used. I mean, good God, man. I mean, this is bonkers, right? This is crazy. This is crazy. And so, look, birthing people, to me, look, I don't know. It sounds weird. It strikes my ears wrong. I don't say that. I don't know if anybody is like clamoring for it. I don't know that anybody cares. And his argument was that the reporter was virtue signaling or whatever. And I don't know what. Maybe she was. But who cares? Like, who gives a damn?
I mean, signaling to who?
Yeah. Like, I don't know.
I'll chime in here to say I'm not familiar with that phrase. I'm not sure where it came from. Maybe that's my own ignorance. I'm just a dude who doesn't know about giving birth. I am a father. I've witnessed it. I mean, if that's the phrase that's used, I don't really care. It doesn't bother me. It doesn't offend me. It doesn't.
Maybe it's because we're not snowflakes. Maybe if we were more fragile.
So. I mean, the juxtaposition between we can save people's lives. Mothers, by the way, in a family values state, we could save the lives of mothers who are having children they had to have because they can't have an abortion in this state. But we could talk about that, or we could talk about 2 words in a story that.
The argument that, like, the reason that they said this word, the reporter said that, because not everybody who gives birth identifies as a woman, and so therefore maybe mother is an exclusionary term. But, like, I don't know. Like,
I don't know if there's a real demand for that.
Yeah, I don't know that there's really a demand for that. But,
that makes me think, like, probably some folks with maybe too much grad school came up with that. But
perhaps.
But, listen, if that's a legitimate call, I mean, like, if people really feel excluded by it and that's what they want, it doesn't bother me one bit.
Yeah.
No harm.
So, look, I pointed out that just as he's saying that her saying that birthing people are going to benefit from this, just as he's saying she is virtue signaling, I pointed out that his outrage is performative. And the thing that he is signaling is a veneer of normalcy, of othering this woman who used this word and people like her, and saying that I'm a normal working Alabamian and I stand for family values and for the working man and that kind of thing. And he does that while being on the side of coastal elites who are robbing a Brookwood community blind. And so, look, I just pointed out the disconnect. And, I think that's more relevant. And I think it is near on the order of criminal negligence to have been on the radio for a year and have not mentioned it once. I searched his Twitter for the mention of coal miners. So this isn't even actually related to the strike necessarily. Coal miners, coal miner, UMWA, Warrior Met, Brookwood, all of those terms turned up 0 results.
Well, Jacob, I'm not so sure that the Koch family and whoever else may be pulling his strings and patting his pockets would prefer he talk about those things.
I mean, good grief.
Because, he pisses me off, frankly, Phil Williams, because of the Alabama Policy Institute. They have done a lot of damage in this state. If you look, editorials and opinion columns for years have been dominated by the Alabama Policy Institute, and it is a astroturfed think tank. funded by right-wing billionaires. And unfortunately, folks like that and organizations like that dominate the public narrative in places like Alabama. They dominate the news. They dominate the radio airwaves. I think you've hammered on why, what it is that they do.
Right.
On one hand, they propose reactionary policies that would make things worse for the majority of people in this state. And when they're not doing that, or sometimes simply as to distract from that, they spend a lot of time and energy and vitriol fighting over stuff like this, or trying to get people riled up about something like this.
I mean, I know that you don't listen to the radio or like have social media or on it that much, but I mean, I'm serious, Adam. It was hours and hours of content on the radio.
Oh, I believe you, because it's like
birthing people.
Every week or two, they come up with a new shtick of something like this. And like you said,
it was amazing. And this woman, Dana Hall McClain or something in AL.com, she was talking about this is an affront to mothers. Like, no, I think it was an affront to mothers that we let them die before.
Right.
I think that is the affront to mothers. That's what I think. Maybe, I don't know, maybe I'm crazy.
It's amazing how much they can always redirect conversations about the public and about policy and about politics in general. They always manage to redirect it to these sorts of things, these sorts of topics, whether it's Dr. Seuss or, a phrase like birthing people or the manufactured hysteria around critical race theory. It's never ending. Like, I'm old enough to remember when they ran over Dixie Chicks CDs back in the day, and we were supposed to call French fries freedom fries. It's the same kind of people doing the same kind of act. But unfortunately, it's a shtick that has been very successful. It's been very successful in them holding power, and it's been very successful in dividing and conquering the majority, because that's the thing we should never forget, is that the working class is the majority of Alabama and across the country and across this world. We have more in common with each other than we do with these people. These people like Phil Williams and the Koch brothers who fund him. Those are not our brothers.
No.
But it's the majority of the people in this state that are our brothers and sisters, and yes, non-binary comrades. To use a gender-neutral term.
Yeah. Be careful, you might make some people cry.
I know.
It might hurt some people's feelings.
So I am a heterosexual white male father. So I guess, in their realm, I would be a quote-unquote normal person. But I'm just going to say right here that I absolutely have nothing but the most solidarity and respect for all people, regardless of what their gender identity is, transgender, gay, straight, lesbian, whatever they are, whatever you are, you deserve to be treated with respect and dignity, free from discrimination. And I think that's the common sense position that most of us have, frankly. It's just that we are bombarded with media such as this that attempts to get us divided and attempts to make us fear people who are different,
right,
and to blame those people for our problems and to distract us from our real problems and the causes of those real problems.
And he was just appalled that I would point it out, and he said that the strike in Brookwood, which is affecting over 1,000 coal miners and their families directly, and at least the whole community indirectly. He said that is a pet peeve of mine. And then he said that his grandfather was a coal miner and a union man.
Well, what happened?
Yeah,
what happened between that generation and his?
Sometimes the apple does fall far from the tree.
Yeah, unfortunately, in this case. Yeah, if his grandfather was a good union man, coal miner, and now his grandson is a stooge for billionaires.
Yeah.
That's pathetic.
I sent him an email and told him that we would be, or asked him if he'd want to talk to us, and he did not reply. But, I mean, to be fair, it was like less than 24 hours, so, I don't always reply to emails in 24 hours, so maybe we'll have him on the show later. I don't know. We'll see. You just saw a clip from the Valley Labor Report. We are live every Saturday morning from 9:30 a.m. till 12:30 p.m., and we pride ourselves on keeping all of our content free to everybody so that we can talk to as many working folks as possible. If you support the work that we're doing, you think that it's important, you think that it's good, then consider making a monthly contribution to the project, and you can do that on our website, tvlr.fm.